going to go back to the plot sheet that we looked at for our process building drawing there, which is going to show us another example of using these attributes. And this time, it doesn't matter whether we use the color or not, I'm going to turn on the properties window, and I'm going to select the, zoom into the title. I'm going to select the text for the title here. It will let me. Make it editable is probably a good idea. There we go. Okay, and information about what we've selected is displayed on the right-hand side here. You see that the actual text is a code that refers to a property, and that property is defined up here and is set as order processing. And we can edit that in a dialog that pops up to be anything that we want. So we could, for example, do external works. And if we didn't want proposed, let's say it was option 1. Type in option 1. Click on OK. And that property immediately updates in our drawing title here. And all of this information in the title, the project name, the client name, the job number, the drawing number, and the scale, and so on, these are all properties that are attached to the graphics. So all we have to do is update the properties, and all of the drawings update automatically. So, for example, changing the project title, adjusting the property, would update every drawing in the entire project, and likewise with the drawing number. Now, these properties are stored in the MicroGDS drawing in this case, but you can actually store them externally. You can store the properties in a spreadsheet, in a CSV file, or you can store them in a database, and you could link the information from the database to the drawing. A good example of that is if you're a manufacturer using MicroGDS, you could have your product catalog in a database and the information linked directly to the drawing that you create. So you can produce schedules and other useful sets of information based on that information. Okay. I'm going to close this multi-user project down now and choose to save nothing. And I'm going to open our next example. And this is the first one that's not actually from a real project. It's based on a real project. It was done as a sample for an architectural practice, and it took one of their own projects and produced a version in MicroGDS. And it's just a housing terrace. And what we've got here is the unit, the standard unit that is applied in all of the units in the terrace. If we look at our plot windows, we can see that the unit is arranged apparently as a single drawing along the drawing along the plot here. In fact, each of those references just the original plan. They're what's called a photo in MicroGDS. They're similar to a viewport, but you'll see that they're a peculiar shape. And the reason they're a peculiar shape, to just undo that, is so that when we zoom into our corner here, you can see that while the original drawing was an external wall, by adjusting the shape of our overlap, we've actually created a proper internal wall junction. If we go to our original drawing, I'm just going to turn off the document organizer there and tile these drawings so we can see what happens. If I choose to make an alteration on our plan here, let's say, for example, let's turn the dining table around through 90 degrees, you'll see that immediately on all of the plans in the plot sheet here, the table is updated. And likewise, let's say we wanted to mirror our door, so it's opening into the kitchen. Again, the update occurs automatically in all of the plans. So it's a very powerful tool. When you've got a lot of repetition in your project, rather than draw it as many times as it repeats and edit it as many times as it repeats, you can choose to draw it once and only edit once. Great times. The interface that you're working with in MicroGDS is fully customizable. By no means all of the tools that you've got to turn on here, you just wouldn't want them all turned on at once. It would be overwhelming. But you can set up a tool set that suits the way that you're working. And once you've chosen to add or remove your, let's have a look at our toolbars here. So we just choose the toolbars that we want to display. You can just add a few more there so that you can see are turned on, and let's just position them on the screen. When you've done that, you can choose to save that setting, and you can give it any name you want, and I'm just going to do a test here for our toolbars. And at any point, you can choose to, either from here or from the menus that we just looked at, to open another set of toolbars. So in this case, I'm going to use the clean screen version. So I've actually turned off everything here, so I've just got the drawing area to work with. And I'm now going to go back to my webinar version here. It's just our webinar tools. So you can have as many of these layouts as you need. And these layouts are portable. Once you've set them up on one machine, there's a little file that you can take with you if you want to work on a different machine or work on your machine at home. And they're extremely useful. You can also customize MicroGDS using any .NET developer tool. So, for example, you've got the free Microsoft Visual Basic or Visual C# Express tools that you can use to customize MicroGDS if you're familiar with writing code. And there are a number of applications that are shipped with MicroGDS that you can work with, and there are a few more that you can download from various places. Some of them are commercial, you'd have to pay for them, but some of them are made freely available by other users. And of course you can set up things like layer standards and templates and all of that kind of thing to suit the way that you choose to work. So you can use your own drawing titles with raster images and everything else enabled in there. We've got options on batch processing data as well. We've got the option to batch print. In this particular case, there aren't many windows in this project, but we can choose to add to our window here as many of the drawing windows that we have available and save that as a batch and print them out. So if you've got 400 drawings that you want to issue to 5 separate tenderers or vice versa, you can set it up as a batch and just leave it printing overnight. The same is true for export. You can choose to batch export. So if you want to export your entire set of drawings as DWGs, you can do that again. You can load those windows into this display here, and you can save that setting again so that you don't have to set it up every time, and let it export the files however long it wants to, and in whatever location you choose. Okay, and you saw us working with DWGs and with those raster images, some of which were JPEGs, some of which were PNG files. You've actually got a whole array of different file types that MicroGDS will support. So you've got DWX, which is the standard data exchange format, the DWF format, if you're familiar with that, which is the web format for drawings, 3DS, 3D Studio for 3D, PDF files. You can import SketchUp files into MicroGDS, and you can also work with TIFF and BMP files as well. And I think we're at just after 4 o'clock there now, so we've run our 40-minute course easily there, Richard. So I think it's time for questions.
Thank you, John. That's pretty comprehensive. If nobody's actually asked a question on the chat line, so if you want to unmute your phone with a *6 and ask a question, and while you do that, one of the questions that came earlier through to me was, how does it handle AutoCAD drawings with XREF in it? Will it actually bring that into MicroGDS?
It will, yes. I don't have any samples that I'm free to show you, I'm afraid. I do have some that I looked at before we did this session just to double check, but yes, it brings in the XREF information as well. What you need to do is to make sure that you open the parent DWG, if you like, first, and then anything that's XREF'd into that drawing is then opened as well.
It does it automatically?
It does, yeah. When you're sending information out, these viewports that you set up, you have the choice as to whether they're sent as XREFs or whether they're burnt into the DWG that you send out.
Okay, thanks, John. Does anybody out there have any questions for John?
No.
Well, you've all been very patient, very quiet.
Now leaving.
So I think
now leaving.
Call that to a halt. Thank you everybody for attending. Thanks to John for your presentation.
Okay, you're welcome.